Right.
All right, guys, so thanks for coming. We're introducing the Ethereum Attestation service. This is Leonid. Everything you do in your life, lots of important things you do all around the world happens every day, is that there's millions and billions and trillions of attestations being made. Attestations can be anything from you proving your identity to someone. For example, if you're an Uber driver and someone gives you a rating, that's an attestation. If you do a review online on a book, that's an attestation. If a KYC provider attests that someone is who they say they are, that's an attestation. If you claim that you own some property, that's an attestation. If there's a government that has a land registry and they have a list of everybody who owns land, those are attestations. The list goes on. If there's an outcome to an event, perhaps it's the World Cup final. So who wins the game? You can make a claim or attestation that Italy won the final. That's an attestation. So oracles make attestations all the time. So that's basically just an outline of why attestations are important. So Dino, Steve, Leonid, we're the three developers for EAS. So basically there's a lot of solution providers for identity, trust, reputation, all these sorts of things. The problem is that everyone who tries to create an identity solution usually uses a top-down approach where they come up with some sort of schema that they think will be a one-size-fits-all for everything, but it almost never is. It's very difficult to decide what the market wants. So we took a bottom-up approach, and what we do is we basically let anybody create an attestation type that they want to use, and they register it on EAS, and it could be anything. It could be someone's first name, last name. It could be how tall they are, the color of their eyes. It could be, anything you can imagine. So it's an open protocol that we allow people to create their own attestations, and anyone can use them, and it's all in one contract. So EAS is an open protocol. We don't have a token. It's just a base layer, open and free protocol for the ecosystem to use. You'll need Ether if you want to use EAS. And it's permissionless and fully open source, and we're hoping that it will, be used. So let's see. So I went through some use cases. So, identity, voting, ticketing, trade and reputation, cloud credit scores, reputation explorers. So you can imagine a scenario where someone has a lot of reputation in the community, and then they attest to the trustworthiness of another person. And a whole bunch of people could then have a web of trust with different attestation scores being given to each person. So you could even do decentralized identity with that, which is also interesting. So we've got the contracts online on GitHub. You can check them out. And so far everything's just beta version right now. It'll be on testnet soon, and we're asking for some feedback from the community for some of the standards, and then we'll go to mainnet before the end of the year. So really quick, and then I'll pass it over to Leonid. It's pretty simply designed. There's just two main contracts in EAS. One is the main contract where the attestations are made, eas.sol, and the other one is the AO registry. And the AO registry is the magic because it allows anybody to create an attestation type, or we call them objects, or types or objects. We're figuring out that terminology. And they can make an attestation object, register it, and then everybody can attest to those types of attestations on eas.sol.
All right, thanks for the intro, Dino. So now with the nitty-gritty autistic part. So basically, like Dino said, anyone can make an attestation. Everyone can define the schema for an attestation, which we will see in a moment. Completely open, completely permissionless. Most of the logic is supposed to be off-chain in this case. So basically, we use Ethereum as the best layer, of this high, courthouse for the final resolution, but most of the processing is supposed to go off-chain. So anyone can attest to anything, anyone can create attestation schema, which can be voting, KYC, that your hair color, it doesn't really matter. Attestations can be revoked, can also set an expiration date, and attestation can also be linked together. So you can, for example, attest to another attestation. For example, you can maybe object to an attestation. Maybe you want to signal that one attestation that was made was actually incorrect. So we have all these ways as well. This is our dev stack. We're trying to be really up to date. It's important. Yeah, that's best. All right. So the schema itself, basically the type of the attestation, is defined using so the schema specification itself, which is open. You can also provide a contract that can verify the attestation. It's optional. I mean, you can have, for example, an attestation that, let's say you attest that you voted for President Trump or Biden. You can have a verifier that verifies that this is actually the options that you are voting for, and we have in our repository many examples of different verifiers that you can do. Also, the UID of the attestation of the schema is predictable, so you can also sign attestations and only later post the schema itself. So it allows like commit reveal schemes. Attestation itself does on-chain. So as we said, usually you attest as yourself, as a message sender. There's a recipient of the attestation, basically who you attest to. It can be an account, it can be a contract. Again, all these use cases are up to the user of the protocol to be defined. Of course, we provide examples. As we said, you can set an expiration time, and you can also link another attestation. We'll see how it can be used. So this is the structure of the attestation itself, storage optimized. Although we do intend the EAS to be used as a base layer on top of Ethereum, while all the heavy lifting will be done off-chain, we still want it to be as gas optimized and efficient as possible. Yeah, this is the flow of the attestation, not important. We also support both attesting and revoking using EAP 712 type signatures. Some of you are probably familiar with how it's used for permit, EAP 2612. We generalized it also to use other methods. So basically, it's like meta transactions. You can test by providing a signature. Someone else is going to fund this attestation. It can be the KYC provider. It can be a friend. I also want it to be very useful. Yeah, so yeah, this is how it's been done. Yeah, we also provide an SDK so that if you want to provide, to attest or revoke using type signatures, basically all you need to provide, the highlighted section is a callback to sign on the message, and everything else is built by the SDK. It's also typed, so no room for bugs. So you can easily integrate it with hardware device, private key, HSM, KMS, you name it. So this is the schema verification that we said, that basically every time you attest, there's an optional, if the person that created the schema you are attesting to provided a verifier, the verifier will be triggered with all of these parameters that we provided and can basically revert the transaction if the verification fails. And of course, it's completely optional. In some cases, it makes lots of sense. In some cases, it's completely unnecessary. So attestations can also be revoked. Revocation is also being on-chain. The revocation is then stored in the attestation data type. So then everyone who uses the system either on-chain or off-chain can basically see the attestation was revoked, or a link attestation can be revoked. So it's very useful. Similarly, you can revoke using a signature. And yeah, and some examples.
Cool, yeah, so we're going to go through some quick examples. So,
no problem.
So, the obvious one we mentioned is KYC. So you can see here someone made an AO schema. And again, you guys can all create your own schemas. Anyone can make a schema for any type of data they want. So someone made a schema here. It's an example, first name, last name, passport number, and then a Boolean, are they Satoshi Nakamoto? And, clearly this guy would be no. for that
Well,
that
who knows?
part. Or who knows? Yeah. Well, you can attest to whether you think he's Satoshi or not. So yeah, ticketing system, tickets. They don't have to be NFTs. Everyone thinks you need to be an NFT to do ticketing. You don't. The person who's running the ticketing venue can just attest that your address owns the ticket. So here you go. There's an event ID, ticket type, seat number, price. They make the attestation, and they can also decide if it's transferable or not. Clout reputation. You can imagine if we had a reputation system. Maybe Vitalik would have a 100 rating because everyone trusts him, and then when he rates someone else and attests to one of you guys that you've got a good rating, you're also 100. Some of that reputation will transfer to you as being trustworthy, and we expect trust and reputation explorers to be released similar to how you can imagine how Google does PageRank, right? They have an AI algorithm that tries to figure out which pages are the most trustworthy. But by using webs of trust, and similar things will happen here. So you can rate people online as being trustworthy or not if you know their addresses. Voting, pretty clear. Voting systems for DAOs and stuff, those can be, they're trivial to implement. You just attest to a proposal and a vote. Here's an AO schema someone made, a very simple one. If you wanted to do voting for democracies, you need a secret ballot to make sure that people aren't pressured into voting for one candidate or another, and we assume that this will be possible in the future with ZK proofs, so someone can create a schema for secret ballots. Again, land registry, you imagine someone created a schema here, so polygon area is a number of points, latitude and longitudes, that create a square on the map, for example, and the country will just say this polygon area is, land type would be freehold, it expires in never, or if it's leasehold, it expires in 100 years, and they attest that a certain address owns the land. So you can imagine we just turn Google Maps into Decentraland, where there's all the governments in the world are using the EAS registry, and it's very simple to just purchase and transfer things. They can just attest to who the new owner is. Makes lots of things very efficient. Oracle's another example. There's lots of Oracle solutions we see in the ecosystem, but they're all siloed. They all have their own standards. But again, here someone created an AO schema for Oracle, so real-world event ID can be anything, right? So maybe it's Euro Cup final, and then the Boolean is, the real-world event ID, maybe it's did Italy win the final, and then the Boolean is the outcome, so you just say true or false. And so you can do prediction markets with EAS because a whole bunch of people can just attest to the outcome of something, and if they have a high reputation score as being a trustworthy attester, then you'll be able to determine whether or not your DApp accepts all those attestations as the outcome. And then, of course, you can attest to the accuracy of another attestation, and that can be nested to an infinite depth. So someone can attest that something's true, another person can say, no, it's actually false. Another person can say, no, it's true that you said that was false, which was actually true. And everyone can attest to everything being true and false. So, some people online think that the earth is flat. Someone will say that's a false attestation. Someone will say it's true that you said it's false, and then the flat earther will say the first one was false. And so, we can do interesting things in society because everyone can just make their opinions known on any types of attestations or things. So that's the end. We hope that you guys will come up with cool and interesting attestation types and build new dApps on EAS. And if you have any questions, we'll be outside. Thanks.